In today's video, I want to share the complete guide to olive skin. I personally have olive skin and it's been such a journey to kind of figure out how to navigate it. And I know personally, I feel like it changes throughout the year and even day to day. So hopefully this information can be helpful for you if you find yourself in a similar boat. So let's get started. Let's start off with what is olive skin and how you can determine if you have this for yourself. So when we think of olive skin, I think the first thing that comes to mind is a tan, and that's actually not at all what it is. For the sake of this video, and as we're moving forward with this conversation, olive skin simply refers to skin that has a green cast to it. It has a very green quality, and that green quality can be more or less prominent depending on how pale you are, how tan you are, what time of the year it is, different clothes that you're wearing, different colors that you're wearing, and it's very, very delicate and very sensitive. So to figure out if you have olive skin yourself, there are a couple things that might give it away. The first is your skin might have an ashy quality to it. It might look a little bit soft and muted, but really when you look really hard, you see that green cast. That's going to be the giveaway. And if you find this green cast a little bit tricky to pinpoint, especially if maybe you're on the pale side, or if you're more tan and it kind of fades a little bit, all you have to do is put your arm next to someone else and someone that isn't olive, and you'll be able to see that differentiation. You'll stand out pretty clearly as green. Now, another thing that might give it away that you have olive skin is you have a really hard time with makeup. And more often than not, it's those complications with makeup that lead you to figuring out that you have olive skin. So you're going to have difficulty with everything from blush to bronzer to eyeshadow and lipstick. They tend to change colors very aggressively. You'll notice they pull very orange very quickly, even if they're not even remotely orange. And then also you might have a difficulty with depth because you need a certain amount of depth and intensity for olive skin that oftentimes isn't found in a lot of colors. It's really easy to lose that depth and that intensity and that nuance between these colors as you kind of move into olive skin, and it's really, really important. And then also you're going to have a really hard time finding foundation and concealers, any complexion product. And the reason for that is that there are really few true olive foundations on the market, and when they are, they're usually really small in the depth, so they might be too light or too dark for you. So finding the perfect one can be almost impossible, and you may have had better luck in the past going for something neutral or slightly warm. Now I want to share some of my top tips for navigating olive skin and how you can really make this work for you. So let's start with complexion first, and your foundations and your concealers. Finding a true olive undertone is going to be really difficult, and so my recommendation is to go for your intensity first. So whether you're light, medium, deep, or really deep, you're going to want to focus there first and foremost, because having the intensity off but the undertone correct is going to look way off, and it's better to have your intensity correct, and then you can kind of color correct with other things. So definitely start there first, and then once you have that figured out, you can see if there is an olive undertone within that range for you, and if there is, that's great and that's wonderful, and more often than not that's going to become one of your holy grail products. Now if you can't find an olive undertone, then experiment with neutral, because oftentimes olive undertones are going to be masquerading as neutrals, and sometimes they'll be classified as neutral depending on the brand and depending on how prevalent those olive searches are in that demographic or that market. So definitely try some neutrals. I know personally I can experiment with neutrals, and there are some that are labeled neutral that really do pull kind of yellowy or olive for me, and so I can make them work. And more often than not, a neutral is going to be a little bit more flexible than something that's overly orangey and warm and something that's too pink and cool. So kind of experiment there. And then if you really can't find something that works, you can take a foundation that's close, and then you can add green pigment or you can add blue pigment. And experimenting with your combination of either just green or just blue, or a combination of the two of them, can give you your absolute perfect match. Now also, when it comes to finding your perfect match for olive skin, there are a couple other things that I recommend. And the first is that you're going to want to do a very large swatch. So anytime you're swatch testing to see if something matches, you want to do it from your cheek all the way down to your neck. And with olive skin, you want to make sure that that's really far down, because we tend to have a lot of differentiation between our face and our neck in general, but especially if you have olive skin, you may have more or less green visible depending on what part of your body you're working with. So make sure you have a really nice swatch. And then also, you don't want that swatch to be too thick or too heavy, and instead you want to kind of blend it out and make sure that it's actually melding with your skin. Oftentimes, especially if it is an olive foundation, that olive comes really clear when you start mixing it, and if you just do a giant swatch, it might look totally off and not really like a human skin color. So really blending that in, it makes a world of difference. And then this also applies if you're working with, again, those more neutral tones, or even something a little bit on the warm side. Because as you blend it in, it might work. And then take a step back from the mirror. No one is going to be that close to you. So take a step back and see how you can make it work. Maybe if you add bronzer, or you change your lip color or your blush color, and see how it kind of reads for the overall picture. And then of course, you always have the option to not wear complexion products at all and just let your beautiful skin shine through. So as soon as you have that side of everything sorted, you can then move on to color cosmetics. And this is where things get really complicated with olive skin. This is more often than not going to be your biggest obstacle. So let's start with blush first. Now, because olive skin has that green cast, and that green may be more or less visible depending on the time of the year or how tan you are, or just generally how you're feeling that day, because of that, you may or may not have a natural blush color to your face. And you may not feel super flushed even after you work out, because that green is going to kind of neutralize any redness. So because of that, you may want to skip blush altogether, and I do that a lot. There are very few instances where I actually reach for blush, and more often than not, I'm more than okay doing like a bronzer that's got like a little bit of a peachy tone, or something that has a little bit more of a red tone to it, or even just contour. And that tends to pull just enough color up into your face. Now, if you do want to go for a blush, then there are a couple things that I recommend. The first is you're going to have a lot of luck if you go for something more muted, something a little bit soft, and something that has kind of a dusty quality to it. That's going to bring that softness. And because olive skin has that soft, delicate overlay, you're going to want to lean into that a little bit when it comes to these color cosmetics. So for blush, that's no exception. So things that are a little bit soft, muted, and then really rosy and kind of fresh, but all that live within that really small range. So I'm going to put some examples here for you. And then also when it comes to the finish of these products, more often than not, you may prefer something matte or semi-matte, and that's because that feeds into that softness again. Anything a little bit too shiny, sparkly, or just reflective in general is going to feel a little bit bright. And because olive skin can have that muted tendency, going too bright is going to feel a little bit out of place. So unless you want your blush to stand out, going for something a little bit softer and matte or semi-matte may be your preference. Now when it comes to your lip color, you're probably going to have similar luck with those muted, dusty, soft pinks and things that pull even slightly a little bit purple feeling, but also you may have some flexibility with brown. So depending on how deep you are and how deep you get throughout the year, you may like a lot of brown colors and a lot of brown lip liners, a lot of brown lip products in general. So don't discount those, especially if, like me, you have a really broad range. So I can be very, very pale in the winter, but then I can also be much darker in the summer. I'm half Colombian and I get very, very tan very quickly. And as a result, I can wear a lot of those browns, and they feel a little bit more harmonious for me during certain points of the year than those pinks or those more rosy colors. So definitely experiment here and try to take some recommendations from people that have a similar skin color to you, rather than someone that's totally lighter or totally darker. You're going to have much better luck with it that way. So if you see something labeled as brown, be sure to kind of really swatch it and look at it and see if it has that kind of pinky reddish tone to it, because if it's brown plus that pinky tone, it's probably going to be absolutely beautiful and absolutely perfect for you. Now also, when it comes to cheek products, you may really love something that's a little bit peachy. And here you're going to have to play around with it and experiment a little bit, because you may find a peachy bronzer that works beautifully for you. I know I have one that I love, but then also peachier blushes could work really well. And the reason is because they sit so close to green. So depending on how green you're feeling, you may love the vibrancy of something a little bit peachy and fresh, and it can counteract that really beautifully. But this definitely changes for me throughout the year, so experiment for yourself. Depending on how pale I am or how tan I am, depends on which kind of peach or pink direction that I can lean, and if I want to go more dusty mauvey or if I want to go a little bit peachier. So experiment with this and try to make it personal to you and drown out the noise and do what works best for you. And if you look in the mirror and you think it looks great, then it does. Don't worry about anybody else telling you that it doesn't. And then also, I've put together a comprehensive list full of swatches and product recommendations and foundations, and it's really intensive. And I'm linking that down on my Substack down below for you in case you want to take a look. I hope that this is helpful for you, and definitely let me know if you have olive skin yourself, what you like, what you don't like, and any products that work beautifully for you. Let us know in the comments down below, and we can use this as a resource. And like always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Have a great day.